If you need a family-sized 5-seat MPV but don't necessarily want one, look straight to this car, the efficient and surprisingly sophisticated Citroen C4 Space Tourer. It's extravagantly designed and comes with some genuinely innovative features. The basics of space, safety and cost effectiveness are all taken care of, but where this model really excels is in the other things: style, technology and a very emotive feel. By people carrying standards, it's a bit special.
If you'd like a spacious MPV, only need room for 5 and want something that's sophisticated and state-of-the-art, then it's to this model that we might well direct you first. Citroen's C4 Space Tourer. You might well know this car better by its previous name, the C4 Picasso. After years of wrangling with the great Spanish artist family, Citroën finally abandoned using Señor Pablo's famous moniker in the spring of 2018, though only after 3 million Picasso MPV sales had been generated. The original Zara Picasso model was launched in 1999, then in 2007 was replaced by the far more modern C4 Picasso. That car was relaunched in a more futuristic second-generation guise in 2013, then substantially updated in 2016. Before, as mentioned earlier, being rebranded the C4 Space Tourer a couple of years later. Now, you're up to date. It's tempting to think of MPV people carriers as one of the most boring sectors of car design. Boxes on wheels with little wit or verve to their execution. In this case, though, things are very different. Yes, what we have here is a box with wheels at each corner, but as any kid at Christmas will tell you, not all boxes are created equal. It may have been designed to go head-to-head with 5-seat MPV rivals such as the Ford C-Max, the Renault Scenic and the Volkswagen Golf SV, but in some ways this Gallic contender feels cut from rather different cloth. Emboldened by the success of their boutique DS line of cars, Citroën has decided to inject a measure of style and desirability into many of its other wares, and this design has certainly benefited, still with the feel of something that's just driven off a motor show stand. As before, it's also available in 7-seat guise, badged predictably as the Grand C4 Space Tourer. But it's the 5-seat body style that we're going to concentrate on today. This variant's most significant Ford, Renault and Volkswagen rivals have been considerably improved in recent times. So in creating the model we're going to look at here, Citroën has had to do more than just change the name to keep it competitive. So the range benefits from elements of the company's Advanced Comfort programme and gets the PSA Group's latest 1.5-litre Blue HDI 130 diesel engine, which can, on request, now be mated to a more sophisticated auto gearbox than was offered before. The replacement EAT8 transmission, featuring much smoother shifting and 8 speeds. At the summit of the range, there's a new range-topping 2-litre Blue HDI 160 diesel power plant. And with the plushest variants, you can now specify a raft of extra camera-driven safety kit too. Will it all be enough to keep potential buyers interested? Let's find out. Climb aboard a C4 Space Tourer, and before you even set off, it's clear that this is going to be a somewhat different experience. There are no conventional instrument dials and nothing directly in front of you, with key driving information instead displayed on a giant screen in the centre of the dash. The first thing that'll probably grab your attention, though, is this, a windscreen that stretches up and almost over your head, affording a panoramic view not just of the road ahead, but also of the sky above. The wishbone-shaped windscreen pillars have glazed centre sections to further boost visibility, and there's a low window line that not only makes manoeuvring easy, but should also give children a better view out and potentially stop them feeling sick. So, it's different to sit in then, but will it be so to drive? Let's find out. We should start by telling you about the engineering improvements that have come packaged up with this model's change in name from Picasso to Space Tourer. The volume Blue HDI diesel engine is now 1.5 rather than 1.6 litres in size, but its 130 HP output is slightly higher than before. The 2-litre blue HDI diesel option gets a slight power hike too, to 160 HP. Elsewhere in the range, the efficient 1.2-litre 3-cylinder PureTech petrol engine continues, but only in 130 HP form, which is the package we've chosen to try here. There's a fresh auto transmission option too, the jerky old 6-speed E86 self-shifter finally ditched in favour of a much smoother 8-speed E88 unit that's optional with the two 130 HP power plants and standard on the top blue HDI 160 diesel. We opted for petrol power today because we think an increasing number of Citroen buyers will, encouraged by the fact that this PureTech 130 unit makes a good partner for this car. You obviously don't get as much pulling power through the gears as you would in a diesel variant, but 230 Nm of torque is not to be sniffed at, and the 62 mph sprint is purposefully dispatched in 9.6 seconds en route to 124 miles an hour. The figures for the alternative 1.5-litre Blue HDI 130 diesel model are pretty much the same, 10.4 seconds and 123 miles an hour. But with 300 Nm of torque on tap, overtaking is a mite easier in the mid-range. If you want more pulling power than that, there is, as previously mentioned, the 2-litre Blue HDI 160 diesel variant to consider, which is worth looking at if you're considering the 7-seat version of this car, but probably unnecessary in this 5-seat model. This top version improves the performance figures to 8.9 seconds and 130 miles an hour. Whatever engine you choose though, one thing remains constant: the silky smooth ride. It's the thing we like most about this car. It may come as news to some motoring journalists, but the majority of MPV buyers don't routinely want to throw their cars about as if they were on a stage from the RAC rally. What most of them would prefer is a model that rolls the red carpet over the average, appallingly surfaced British road, as this one does. Nothing in this part of the market can better the pillowy ride quality on offer here. But the trick, which Citroen hasn't always mastered, is to offer this without inducing the kind of body roll and handling woolliness that removes any element of enjoyment from the driving experience altogether. In this respect, it's certainly true that this impressively refined design has proved to be a useful step forward from older generation Citroen MPVs. A light, stiff EMP2 or efficient modular platform leaves this model well over 100 kilos lighter than most of its direct rivals, and that certainly helps in making the car feel slightly more agile. But it's still some way off the sprightly standards of a rival Ford C-Max or even a Renault Scenic in terms of steering feel and body roll. And in true Citroen style, the brakes are quite heavily servo-assisted, reacting to the merest brush on the pedal. If you can ignore all that, get familiar with the car and even start to push it a little through the corners, you'll find that the anchors are reassuringly effective. The steering's actually quite accurate and grip relatively plentiful. It's just getting to that point, something you probably won't manage on a brief trip round the block. Still, don't be put off by initial unfamiliarities of design and drive. After all, you probably wouldn't be looking at this Citroen in the first place if you didn't want something just that little bit different from the usual character-free, mid-sized people-carrying experience. Just enjoy this car for what it is as you float over road imperfections, marvel at the unusually hushed levels of refinement, and enjoy the benefits of a commanding driving position that's a huge help at roundabouts or when parking, and with this panoramic screen makes it seem like you're suddenly viewing the world in high definition. It's all very Citroen. If you want to make the look of an MPV more interesting, you've basically got two options. One is to make it lower and more aggressively styled, but that'll affect practicality. The other way is to make your people carrier look technologically sophisticated, trendy and futuristic, which is the approach Citroen has taken here. A huge proportion of this vehicle's original development budget was lavished on its styling, both inside and out. We liked it back at this model's original launch in 2013, and with its current C4 Space Tourer badging, this Gallic MPV remains an eye-catching thing. That certainly seems to be Citroen's perspective, for the French maker hasn't really made any significant styling changes in all the time this particular design has been on sale. The aesthetics still get your attention, with a distinctive three-tiered light signature and a windscreen that flows right up into the roofline. In profile, recent detail changes have seen the introduction of a smarter design of alloy wheel. The rim choice varies in size from 16 to 18 inches, depending on the trim level you select. We've got 18-inch Python-style rims fitted here. Between the arches are sculpted body panels that aim to put an end to the days of slab-sided MPVs and disguise the fact that this design was styled to be shorter and lower than its predecessors. With this top-spec flare version, the central window area is surrounded by a signature chrome-trimmed strip. Moving round to the back, you get an Audi Q5-style clamshell-like tailgate, wide enough to house a complete complement of rear lights that could be ordered with a distinctive 3D illumination. A neat roof spoiler tops things off. And inside? Well, the first thing your Citroen salesperson will show you is this panoramic windscreen. Push up this sun visor and your normal upward 28-degree angle of vision is increased to a massive 108 degrees. It's a better view out, in fact, than you get roof down in a convertible, where the windscreen rail is usually directly above your head. Practically, it means you don't have to crane your neck up when, for example, you're first in the queue at the traffic lights. Subjectively, it does wonders in increasing the light, airy feeling of the cabin, something further aided by these front quarter lights. The overhead extended glass section is progressively tinted so that the top of your head won't be, but if you really don't like it, you can pull the sun visor back down again to the point where the top of the roof would normally be. And that's just the start of the contemporary cleverness. Designer Frederick Subaru describes the interior as being inspired by contemporary loft-style living. It's uncompromisingly modern, airy, and there are a few touches that are quite extravagantly designed, like the optional Relax front passenger seat that lets the occupant raise, stretch, and rest their legs. The days of Citroens feeling built down to a price with all the design flair of a buffet car cheese sandwich are thankfully consigned to the past. Compare this cabin to that of, say, an old C4 Picasso, and you'd never believe they came from the same manufacturer. The dashboard is dominated by these twin screens. Virtually all new cars have some sort of central infotainment screen these days, like this Citroen's tablet-style 7-inch touch drive interface lower display. But more unusual is this snazzily futuristic 12-inch panoramic HD panel up top, which replaces the normal set of conventional dialed instrument gauges. Unfortunately, this feature isn't standard on entry-level spec variants, but if you're buying this car, do try and stretch up to a trim level that has it, for this is one of the defining parts of this high-tech design. This top screen is primarily there to show a virtual speedometer, but it can also be configured to display all sorts of information, such as cruise control and speed limiter settings. Plus, there are various split-screen options if, for example, you want to view navigation instructions at the same time as trip computer and speedo readouts. You can also change the display of the dials from round to square, though we're not sure why you'd want to. More useful is the option of changing the screen's overall theme and uploading a personal photograph from a USB stick as a backdrop. We're not quite so sure about some aspects of the lower infotainment screen, though at least it's standard across the range. As well as managing sat-nav, stereo sounds and Bluetooth compatibility, it also aims to reduce dashboard button clutter by replacing a conventional set of ventilation and air conditioning controls. While this seems a great idea in principle, it can be a bit annoying when, say, you're driving along with the sat-nav showing to have to take your eyes off the road and shuttle through the menus just to change the temperature, stabbing away at the touchscreen to try and get a response. We've no complaints with the rest of this screen's functionality though. This lower monitor includes a mirror screen feature, so you can duplicate your smartphone's display onto the monitor via either the Apple CarPlay or the MirrorLink Android systems. Plus, you can activate compatible apps like Parkopedia, Fuel, Weather Crave and Rock Scout. Most models also get an upgraded navigation system too, the 3D Citroen Connect nav setup, cleverer in that the screen recognises a wider variety of contact points, so you can pinch and swipe as you would on a smartphone, or use voice recognition if that's easier. The Connect Nav system can read your emails and text messages audibly to you. And there's also TomTom mapping data with real-time traffic information, local weather forecasts and information on car parks and petrol stations. Plus, you can do local point of interest searches via the internet. It's all very 21st century. There's more to the cabin than just those screens though. You'll need a bit of time to get used to the steering wheel, which somewhat ironically, given the clean, open feel of the dash, is festooned with buttons. Still, it's nicely made and is surrounded by an interior fashioned from some really high quality materials. As for cabin storage, well, to be frank, that could be a bit better. The glove box is mostly taken up by the fuse box. There's nowhere to store your sunglasses. The twin cup holders in front of the gear stick are very small, and the lidded box at the base of the centre stack that houses the various connectivity points isn't as big as it looks. On the plus side, you get a deep lidded box behind the gear lever that can be removed completely on automatic models, and providing you avoid entry-level trim, you get useful under-seat drawers and these front seat armrests that give a captain's chair type feel. We also really like this optional rear-facing conversation mirror, standard on this top-spec version, which is there to give an unimpeded view of which child has just stuffed its sticky sweet into your 12-volt socket. So, how will those children fare once they're installed rearwards and ready to plug their gaming equipment into one of the 3 12-volt sockets scattered around the car? Well, pull open rear doors and open wide to a 65-degree angle for excellent access, and it certainly looks pretty spacious. With comfort, you can properly appreciate thanks to a proper seating arrangement. Unlike many people carriers, this one doesn't position the unfortunate middle rear passenger with legs astride a central transmission tunnel and perched on some hard and narrow piece of bulging foam. Instead, there's a completely flat floor and a rear cabin seating area made up of 3 separate, identically sized chairs that can be reclined and folded flat independently of one another. Avoid entry-level trim and you'll find that they can be slid backwards and forwards too. The fold flat option means that the middle one can function as a useful table when not in use. Talking of tables, this top variant gets aircraft-style fold-out ones built into the front seat backs, along with fan speed adjustment for these neatly integrated B-pillar vents, integrated retractable rear side window sunblinds, and this huge panoramic glass roof that ups the combined glazed area to a greenhouse-like 5.3 metres squared. Providing you avoid an entry-level trim, you get rear privacy glass and these 2 neat underfloor compartments, which allow things like kids' toys or stuff you want to store away from prying eyes to be easily concealed. A 12-volt socket is centrally provided next to this small storage area, and there are bright LED reading lights provided for both outer rear passengers. The rear door pockets, though, are small and narrow. Everything we've said so far applies not only to this C4 Space Tourer, but also to its 7-seat stablemate, the Grand C4 Space Tourer, which uses its extra 169mm of length to house the 3rd row seating that larger families will want. And a bit of extra boot space too. Ah yes, we were getting to that. No doubt it was a great design idea building all the rear lights into the tailgate rather than, as would be more normal, splitting them between the hatch and the corners of the car. The downside of that approach is that it makes this thing very heavy, which makes the powered tailgate you get on this top spec variant quite desirable, a feature operable with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper if you approach the car laden down with bags. When the hatch is raised, you'll find yourself gazing at the largest cargo area in the class. Even with the seats slid right back like this, it's 537 litres in size up to parcel shelf height, and you can increase that to as much as 630 litres if you push these 3 chairs forward. That's 105 litres more room than you'd get in a similarly configured rival Ford C-Max, and 31 litres more than you'd get in a comparable Renault Scenic. It's a usable Space 2. There are 4 tie-down points, 2 bag hooks, a 12-volt socket and a right-hand side compartment with an elasticated strap. You don't get much more space beneath the floor because, laudably, Citroen supplies a proper spare wheel rather than one of those fiddly tyre repair kits. Fold the rear seats flat and you've a 1,851 litre cargo area to play with. We'd want to make use of this fold-flat front passenger seat too, which allows you to carry objects of up to 2.5 metres long. It's standard above entry-level trim. Citroen's pricing for its mid-sized MPVs is a little higher than it used to be, but C4 Space Tourer pricing is still pretty competitive by the standards of its market segment, as we shall see. Expect to pay somewhere in the £22,500 to £31,000 bracket, depending on the engine you want and the trim variant you're looking for. There are 3: Touch Edition, Feel, or the version we've got here, the top spec Flare model. Whatever spec you prefer, the major decision you're going to need to make if you've decided on a C4 MPV is whether to choose this 5-seat body style or find a model-for-model premium of £1,700 to graduate up to its 7-seat grand C4 Space Tourer stablemate. You're also going to want to think about transmission. The brand's EAT8 8-speed auto gearbox is a £1,570 extra and really suits the laid-back demeanour of this Citroen. Go for the top blue HDI 160 diesel and you have to have it. Time to talk in a little more detail about those engines, focusing on the 5-seat C4 Picasso model that's the subject of this film. Previously, almost all buyers of this Citroen MPV chose a diesel, but you won't need us to tell you that things have been changing in that regard over the last few years. With that in mind, for this test, we've selected the single petrol option that Citroen offers, a 1.2 litre 3-cylinder PureTech 130 HP unit. Even if you're not particularly interested in the planet-saving arguments against diesel, if you're a low-mileage family buyer, you could well find that the PureTech option makes more sense. A considerable number of customers for this car, though, will continue to want to find the premium of just over £1,500 that Citroen charges to switch from the PureTech petrol unit to the base blue HDI 130 diesel unit. Prices start from around £24,000 for this 1.5 litre unit. There's a big price jump to make if you want to move up to the 2 litre blue HDI 160 diesel variant, priced from just over £28,000. So, having talked you through the range, let's talk you through the value proposition this car offers against rival models in its segment. Of course, if you're looking at a mid-sized 5-seat family people carrier with decent luggage space and versatility, an MPV like this one isn't the only way you could go. A similar kind of budget would get you a small estate based on a Focus-sized family hatchback, say Peugeot's 308 SW, for example. Or, if you want to make a bit more of a statement, an affordable family SUV like Nissan's Qashqai or Citroen's own C5 Aircross. But let's assume that it is a mid-sized 5-seat MPV you actually want, and not one based on a super mini like Ford's B-Max or Fiat's 500L, but something decently sized that, if necessary, could function as your family's only means of transport. What else is there to directly rival this car? Well, not that much is the answer, if truth be told. The 3 rivals that perhaps most closely mirror what's on offer here are probably Ford's C-Max, the Renault Scenic and Volkswagen's Golf SV, so let's take a look at those. All 3 models apparently undercut this Citroen on price by between £500 and £1,500, depending on the engine you're looking at. But Citroen points out that the base petrol and diesel engines in each case offer 10 to 15% less power than you'd get in this Space Tourer. Yet, even so, this C4 still manages to be cleaner and more economic. Plus, the seats-down luggage capacity you get in this Citroen is considerably better than is the case with those 3 rivals. Finally, and perhaps most significantly, it's the only car in this class that gives you 3 individual chairs in the second row, rather than a less flexible conventional bench. in the way that, in our view anyway, an MPV should. Are there other mid-sized 5-seat MPV options in this class? Well, only premium badged ones. A Mercedes B-Class or a BMW 2 Series Active Tourer could easily cost you £3,000 to £4,000 more in like-for-like comparisons. And both of these German alternatives will struggle against this Citroen in terms of equipment, efficiency and carriage space. So, we've covered the obvious options in the 5-seat family MPV market. But if you widen the scope of your search a little, you might find yourself considering some others. Some might point out that the Kia Carens offers the advantage of 7-seat versatility for C4 Space Tourer money, which is true. But again, you pay for that in terms of interior space and running cost efficiency. Other people-carrying options that might spring to mind: pricier mid-sized MPVs like Vauxhall Zafira Tourer and Volkswagen's Tiguan are, like the Carens, 7-seat only models, and as such really compete more directly with the grand C4 Space Tourer version of this car that we'll cover in a separate film. You can see then that however you cut it, this Citroen looks a strong prospect for the right kind of buyer. So if you are that person, what can you expect to find included within the standard equipment tally? Well, a reasonable amount actually. All models get distinctively practical C4 Space Tourer touches like the clever panoramic windscreen and 3 separate full-sized rear seats with reclining backrests. Other equipment items fitted right across the range include smart alloy wheels of at least 16 inches in size, LED daytime running lights, auto headlights and wipers, front fog lights, rear parking sensors, power folding mirrors, a perimetric and volumetric alarm, and a space saver spare wheel. Inside, there's dual-zone air conditioning with a pollen filter, a stitched leather multifunction steering wheel, aux-in, USB and 12-volt sockets, plus cruise control with a speed limiter. Below the unusual central LCD instrument display, you also get a 7-inch touch drive centre infotainment touchscreen, your access point for Bluetooth phone compatibility, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and the 6-speaker DAB stereo system. Unfortunately, you've to stretch beyond base Touch Edition spec and find around £1,400 more to trade up to mid-range feel trim if you're to get a range of practical and comfort-orientated features that we think really set this C4 Space Tourer apart in its market segment. Plus, you'll also need to stretch beyond entry-level spec to get the option of the camera-driven safety tech we'll brief you on in a moment. So what do you get with the mid-range feel spec models? Well, the exterior styling's lifted quite a bit by larger 17-inch Mamba alloy wheels, by the rear privacy glass and by a chromed side signature strip that curves around the rear C-pillar. Plus you get puddle lights in the doors and front parking sensors at this level too. Inside, feel spec C4 Space Tourer models get a smarter interior trimmed with what Citroen calls its wild blue ambience. Perhaps more significantly, occupants will enjoy niceties like Citroen's Connect navigation system, a massaging function for the front seats, aluminium front sill scuff protectors and a rechargeable boot torch. Plus you get the 12-inch panoramic HD colour central instrument display that for us is really a key part of the interior's futuristic appeal. In addition, there are useful features like underfloor storage compartments at the rear and backseat bases that slide. The front seats incorporate lower drawers and are embellished with armrests, plus there's height adjustment and a fold-flat function for the front passenger seat. At the priciest end of the range, a flagship Flare variant like this one is identifiable by its larger 18-inch Python alloy wheels and by the brighter LED illumination used for both the tail lamps and for front indicators that are built into power folding door mirrors. Inside there's a classier cabin featuring the brand's hype grey ambience theme, which gives you part leather seat trimming and a gloss finished grey dashboard. Probably the key Flare spec feature is the huge panoramic glass roof that ups the combined glazed area to a greenhouse-like 5.3 metres squared. Desirable extra interior touches include dimmable interior mood lighting, an auto-dimming electrochrome rear view mirror, a child observation mirror, and for the rear passenger compartment, dedicated fan speed adjustment, fold-down tables, and integrated rear side window sunblinds. There's a bit of extra tech too, courtesy of extra items like a reversing camera and a park assist self-parking system that automatically identifies spaces, then steers you into them. Let's now move on to take a look at the safety provision offered by this model. As you'd expect, there are twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus ISOFIX child seat fastenings on all 3 rear seats. To try and keep these things from ever being necessary, there are the usual electronic assistance features, including traction and stability control, plus ABS brakes with brake assist for emergency stops. All models also get Citroen's neat coffee break alert feature, which lets you know if you've been driving too long and prompts you to stop for a break. It all accounts for a 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating and an 89% score in the testing programme's child occupant category. These days, though, you'd expect all of this sort of thing to be further embellished with active camera-driven safety tech, something Citroen claims to have provided with the safety pack that it's developed as part of the change to Space Tourer branding. Unfortunately, closer inspection of the small print reveals that this pack is standard only with top-spec flare trim, is only optional on a mid-range Feel model, and can't be had at all on a base Touch Edition version. This pack's main inclusion is autonomous braking. The brand calls its system Active Safety Brake with Forward Collision Warning. And as usual with these kinds of setups, this one scans the road ahead as you drive for potential accidents. If such a hazard is detected, you will be warned. If you don't respond or aren't able to, the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. The safety pack also includes speed limit recognition that'll picture road signs as you pass and display them on the dash, and driver attention alert, which will monitor your driving reactions for drowsiness and warn you if lethargy is detected. Feel spec buyers get an electrochrome rear view mirror too. If you want to go further and you've got a C4 Space Tourer with either Feel or Flare trim, then you'll be offered the optional Safety Pack Plus, which adds to those safety pack features with 3 other camera-driven safety elements. There are intelligent beam headlights that automatically dip themselves at night in the face of oncoming traffic, an active blind spot monitoring system that warns you if you're about to pull out in front of another vehicle, and an active lane departure warning setup that works on the highway to warn you if you've drifted out of lane. Both these last 2 systems also apply light steering lock to ease the vehicle back to where it ought to be. By the way, if you happen to be specifying automatic transmission with this car, another alternative way you could get your C4 Space Tourer fitted with the safety pack and the dipping headlights, the lane departure warning and the blind spot setups would be to specify the driver assistance pack we've been trying here. That's probably worth thinking about because this more complete pack additionally includes the useful active radar-guided cruise control with a stop function, which will be really helpful for longer journeying folk. This system will automatically keep you a safe distance behind the vehicle in front at highway speeds and will seamlessly slow the car down and start it off again if you come across a tailback. Having tried most of this stuff, we'll tell you that the radar-guided active cruise control works well, but is fiddly to activate. Setup requiring use of steering wheel buttons, manipulation of the infotainment touchscreen, and attention on the top digital display. The active lane departure warning system, meanwhile, uses a vibrating mechanism that buzzes the seatbelt against you when your wheels stray over the lane delineating lines without you indicating. It's rather irritating, actually, but maybe that's just the point. Let's switch now into considering the various more general options that Citroen offers with this car, most of which are grouped into packs that tend to be specific to specific trim levels. With base Touch Edition trim, adding in the available Style Pack will give you larger 17-inch wheels and the panoramic glass roof. For the inside, at this entry-level point in the range, you can upgrade the cabin decor at extra cost with Citroen's wild blue or dark grey ambience packages, which lift the look of the interior quite a lot. On such a Touch Edition C4 Space Tourer variant, though, we'd probably be more likely to save our money for the Convenience Pack, which gives you the child observation mirror and the rear side window blinds we mentioned earlier, as well as a reversing camera, keyless entry and Citroen's Connect navigation system. If you're buying this Citroen, it's more likely, though, that you'll have gone with our recommendation and saved up the extra for a mid-range field-trimmed model with all the extra practicality features we think you'll want. If that's the case, then you'll probably want to know that a Convenience Pack is offered at this level in the range too. And we'd recommend that you tick the box for that because it includes quite a lot of what you'd ideally want. It also gives you keyless entry, the child observation mirror and the rear side window blinds, but additionally throws in more: a powered tailgate and electrochrome rear view mirror, a two-tone horn and the park assist system for steering you into spaces. As well as all this, the Feel Convenience Pack further gives you quite a lot of the camera-driven safety stuff we were covering earlier. The active lane departure warning system, the active blind spot monitoring system, the speed limit recognition system, the driver attention alert system, and the intelligent beam headlights. If on a mid-range feel-spec C4 Space Tourer you want to give the car the smarter look provided by the priciest top flare-spec variant we're trying here, then your dealer will point you towards one of the style packs available for mid-level buyers. The Feel Style Pack gives you that huge panoramic glass roof, dark tinted rear privacy glass and LED illumination for the rear lights and front indicators. The Feel Style Pack Plus gives you all that along with these larger 18-inch Python alloy wheels. You can bring extra luxury to the inside of a Feel spec model by paying extra for the flagship variant's hype grey ambience trimmed cabin with its part leather upholstery and glossed finished grey dashboard. Finally, if you're stretched all the way up to a flare-spec C4 Space Tourer like this one, you might very possibly be thinking about adding the extra Safety Plus Pack camera-driven features we covered earlier. To remind you, these were the auto-dipping headlights, the active blind spot monitoring, and the active lane departure warning setup. If so, another alternative would be to pay extra for the Flare Convenience Pack, which packages those three elements up with a 360-degree camera system and xenon headlights. On a Flare spec model, you can also pay extra for full Napa leather upholstery that comes as part of what Citroen calls its Dune Grey Ambience cabin trimming pack. As part of this pack, you also get what is probably our favourite optional feature in this car, the brilliant Relax front passenger seat that gives you an electric footrest, a massage function and a beautifully soft enveloping headrest. We've passengered in a C4 Space Tourer fitted with the Relax package, and it's like travelling first class in a 747. What else? Well, you're probably going to need to pay your Citroen dealer more for your choice of paint colour because solid onyx black is the only shade that comes as standard. This particular car's polar white solid finish is your first extra cost option. Or you could pay for one of the brand's various metallic shades. Or stay with the standard onyx black but specify it with a bitone roof colour. A detachable tow bar is also offered across the range. As we touched upon earlier, on-the-limit handling won't be a priority for MPV buyers, but three other issues most certainly are: practicality, safety, and cost of ownership. The first two areas are well covered by this car, but does it stack up on the balance sheet? When the second generation C4 Picasso model this C4 Space Tourer is based upon was first launched back in 2013, Citroen went back to basics to try and ensure that it did, improving the aerodynamics, adding in stop and start engine technology, and most significantly using a more modern EMP2 chassis that saved 140 kilos of weight. Having done all of this, it was rather a pity that from launch this car was saddled with rather old tech range of engines, But Citroen's since addressed that issue with the result that this C4 Space Tourer can offer some of the most efficient power plants available in the class, complying of course with the latest Euro 6.2 emissions directive. Today we're testing the 1.2 litre 3-cylinder PureTech unit, available in just a single 130 HP state of tune. Here you can expect 54.3 mpg on the combined cycle and 119 grams per kilometre of CO2. And fractionally better than that if you order this green pump engine with the new E88 auto transmission. That auto box is supposed to be 7% more efficient than the previous E86 unit. Whatever your choice of gearbox, this means your C4 Space Tourer will qualify for road tax band C, which costs £30 a year. And you're looking at a benefit-in-kind taxation rating of Group 24. To give you some class perspective on these readings, directly comparable Ford C-Max and Renault Scenic petrol models go 5 fewer miles on each gallon and chug out around 10 grams per kilometre more CO2. A rival Renault Scenic diesel does fractionally better in terms of fuel and CO2, but gives you significantly less performance. For a directly equivalent Ford C-Max 1.5 TDCi 120 PS model, the comparable returns are 60.1 mpg and 125 grams per kilometre. Quite a difference. For completion, we'll also give you the figures for the top engine you can have in a C4 Space Tourer, the 2-litre Blue HDI 160 diesel, which comes only with the E88 auto gearbox. Here, the figures are 60.1 mpg and 124 grams per kilometre for a Feel model with 17-inch wheels. Obviously, you'll do fractionally worse with top-spec flare trim and its larger 18-inch rims. The benefit-in-kind taxation rating you're looking at for the 2-litre diesel is either Group 29 or 30. Stick with the two volume power plants, and the figures we've just been referencing are certainly a long way from the kind of returns you used to get from the old VTI petrol and E-HDI diesel engines used by this design back in 2013. So how have Citroen's engineers achieved such a significant efficiency improvement? With the PureTech petrol models, the answer lies in lighter weight and a 30% reduction in mechanical losses that are due to friction. As for the PSA Group's Blue HDI diesel technology, well, the concept here is based around a clever 3-step after-treatment system designed to better eliminate the 4 nasty pollutants that diesel units usually put out, namely unburnt hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides and particulates. The first stage sees the unwanted hydrocarbon and carbon monoxide elements converted into harmless water and carbon dioxide. In the second stage, that nasty nitrogen oxide also gets converted into water via a selective catalytic reduction process using a urea and water mixture called AdBlue, something you'll have to get topped up every 12,500 miles. Finally, in the third step, a particulate emissions filter eliminates virtually all particulates at a stroke. The result of all this is industry-leading diesel technology that many manufacturers are struggling to copy. What else? Well, earlier we mentioned the emphasis on weight saving that's gone into the creation of this design, and it's made quite a difference. A C4 Space Tourer is around 110 kilos lighter than an equivalent Ford C-Max and around 150 kilos lighter than a rival Renault Scenic. That in turn reduces wear on consumables like tyres and brake pads, all of which adds to the other measures Citroen has put into place to try and cut this model's maintenance costs. They reckon this Space Tourer's clever suspension design increases tyre life by 20%, and that the design of its brakes will preserve the brake pads for 40% longer than a rival model might manage. Another thing that could help you keep garage costs in check is the affordable 3-year servicing plan that's available at point of purchase. Servicing intervals are every year or every 16,000 miles for the PureTech 130 petrol model or the Blue HDI 130 diesel, or every year or every 20,000 miles for the Blue HDI 160 diesel. On to residual values. Now, independent experts reckon you'll get 40.8% of your initial purchase price back after 3 years, which is close to the kind of return you'd get from a comparable Volkswagen model. We'll finish by briefing you on insurance. The PureTech 130 model is rated at Group 20E or 21E if you get it with this top-spec flare trim. The blue HDI 130 diesel is rated at Group 22E or 23E if you get it with flare trim. The 2-litre blue HDI 160 is rated at Group 27E. Finally, there's the usual Citroen 3-year, 60,000 mile warranty. Not every family needs 7 seats in an MPV, and for those that don't, the C4 Space Tourer offers a smartly styled, high-tech equipped and very practical alternative. Though not especially enjoyable to push hard, that's because it's aimed exactly where it should be, targeted at mums and dads rather than at driving enthusiasts. With impressive long-distance comfort, you'll also appreciate on the school run, day in and day out. The improvements that have come with this model's change of name are welcome, though we're a little disappointed that most of them are targeted at pricey variants that few mainstream buyers will be considering. There's no doubt, though, that this design has come on a long way since we first saw it back in 2013. Back then, the futuristic looks always seemed a little out of kilter with the old-tech petrol engines and rather basic levels of media connectivity then provided. With all this now sorted, this C4 Space Tourer offers perfect proof that a people carrier can do more than just provide comfortable, efficient transport. It can be, well, what Citroens once were: clever, futuristic, expressively designed. Cars you'd be genuinely proud to own. We think you'd feel like that if you needed a model of this kind and this were on your driveway. Tick all the right boxes and you'll get an MPV that really seems to have been created with a bit of love. From the panoramic windscreen to the optional lounge-style massaging passenger seat, from the widescreen HD instrument display to the fact that you can sit and Facebook your friends on the touchscreen, it's a car you'll feel has been designed just that little bit differently. In short, there are pleasing signs here of the Citroen we used to know. The manufacturer that took risks, pushed the boundaries of technology, created magic, and brought us cars that sat apart from the ordinary norm. If that sounds appealing, and you're in the market for a model like this one, then we think you'll find a lot here you'll like.